Rich Rod is back in West Virginia, and there could not be more excitement for this program. Rich Rod has done incredible things for this team, and now he is back for another round, and they're hoping to get back to where they were, not just be competitive in the Big 12. They are looking to compete for something more than that. And today we take a deep dive into the West Virginia Mountaineers and see what should we expect from this team. You bring some familiar faces back with you. Guys like Pat White and Noel Devine are going to bring that nostalgia feel, and we'll see how they have an impact on this team. And those two know exactly what it takes to win at West Virginia. And this is a unique place. This is a place where you need to find the right guys that fit into this culture. And Rich Rod knows that. He's talked about that. And they are ready to bring this team back to where it once was. Again, not just settling for being good. They want to be great. And they started with the transfer portal. Now, this is a very different time than we saw Rich Rod last. The transfer portal is going to be a new thing he has to navigate. And so far, he's done a pretty good job. You lost quite a bit of offensive line talent. You losing a talented player like Hudson Clement, Illinois. That was a little bit of a tough loss there. You lose CJ Donaldson to Ohio State. So you lost plenty of talent, but I think that he did a great job of bringing in guys that are going to fit their culture, fit what they want to do offensively and defensively. And you have a team that is ready to compete, ready to make things better than they were before. Bringing in a guy like Jamori Robertson is super underrated, but that's a guy who can make big plays defensively. Michael Coates Jr., wildly overlooked. Honestly, he's probably not going to be one of the top cornerbacks on a Power 4 team at the top of the group, even top 25. But this is a guy who fits really well into what West Virginia is looking to do defensively. He's going to be one of their best corners. Jordan Scruggs will factor into that as well. Guys like Fred Perry and Cam Vaughn follow Rich Rod from Jacksonville State, but they did a good job of we're not going to just bring in the guys that we had at Jacksonville State, because obviously you need those guys to play at a certain level. They went literally everywhere in the transfer portal, and that's the competitive nature of Rich Rod. He is going to find the best talent wherever it is. It does not matter if it's someone he's familiar with or a program that he hasn't seen. He is going to find someone that's going to step up and compete right off the bat. Now, with Pat White being back on this coaching staff, you have another lefty in Nico Margiel that's going to lead this offense. And there's a lot of excitement with Nico's game. This is a guy who definitely has the talent to make big plays. And when he came to West Virginia under the previous regime, there were a lot of people that believed in his talent and believed in his abilities. Now you get a chance to showcase your talent in a new system. You get to show that you can play in Rich Rod's system, and now you get a chance to be the full-time starter. When you look at what he did last year, he didn't play a ton, but he got enough of experience where you kind of have an idea of what he could do. It's just how consistently can he play. 434 yards with 5 touchdowns passing, also 120 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Now, he does have competition. You have Jalen Henderson coming in from Texas A&M behind him. You also have Max Brown coming in from Charlotte. Now, Max is probably going to need some time to show consistency. His time at Charlotte was not very good. Jalen Henderson has some promise to him. When you look at Texas A&M's quarterback situation, they did lean on him quite a bit when he was there, and he did show some really exciting signs. So it's not that Nico has this job locked up by any means, but he is definitely going to be the guy that starts right away. And then they may use Jalen Henderson in some different packages, but I think that Nico gets a chance to be the guy right out the bat, show why he was so exciting coming in, and show why his talent could, in theory, bring this team to another level that they haven't seen in a while. And this is going to be a new era for everybody. West Virginia fans want to be competitive in the Big 12. I think that they want to be more than that as well. And Rich Rod obviously has stated that as well, as we mentioned before. He is someone that is not going to settle for just being good. He wants this team to be great. He wants to bring this program back where he thought he could take it when he left. And I think that sometimes when we hire new coaches, there's, some excitement, but also some people are like, well, we couldn't find anybody better at the same time. But I don't think that's the case with Rich Rod. I think there's genuine excitement, and I think people are just excited to have him back. And the offense is going to see exactly why they're excited to have him back. And I think that there are going to be a lot of players that benefit from Rich Rod's presence. The rushing attack, honestly, I don't want to put it in that Steve Slayton, Noel Devine category, but I'm really excited about what this rushing attack could be in Rich Rod's system. Jaheim White comes back after being, a very important contributor in 2024, 844 yards and 7 touchdowns. He gets to be RB1, at least undisputed for right now. He does have quality depth behind him, though. I think getting Jalen Knighton, even though his stats last year in only 2 games weren't that impressive, that is an explosive player that can make some really exciting plays for this team. I think that you bring him in and you get that option of making explosive plays on the edge, up the middle, but Jaheim White is going to be that guy. Now, you do bring in a couple other players that are from the level below, and that's going to give you some interesting prospects of how can they develop. Ty Edwards rushed for over 1,000 yards at Northern Iowa last year. He also had 6 touchdowns. Cannon Katzer comes in from Ferris State. Ferris State had an incredible year in 2024. 1,100 yards for him, average 8.8 yards per carry, and 11 touchdowns. That is going to be tough to replicate at the FBS level, at the Power 4 level, but that's an exciting player to bring in, and he is going to be competitive to try to prove that he can handle life at this level. And the rushing attack was 27th last year. You expect it to be one of the better rushing attacks in college football again with Rich Rod back. That should be the expectation. And you have plenty of depth at key positions to make that happen. The passing attack is really where it's going to get interesting. And this is a group that has to prove themselves. Now, you do bring in a couple of players that could step up and compete right away for starting spots. You also return some talent that is looking to prove itself ultimately. Cam Vaughn follows Rich Rod from Jacksonville State, but we don't know what he can do at this level. A big year for him, 803 yards and 5 touchdowns. So he has the ability to make plays. It's just a matter of how do we make sure that we can translate that to this level. Now, I'm excited to see him as a big-time playmaker for this offense, and he does have a couple other players that can complement him. Jaden Bray, when healthy, is a big-time threat downfield. And, only 2 catches, went for 88 yards and 44 yards per catch. But obviously, you're not going to put a ton of money on him doing that consistently. You are going to expect big things from him if he's healthy, and that helps this offense. Everybody knows that they're going to run the football. It's just going to come down to how do we make this a balanced group? How do we make this a balanced offense? And guys like Vaughn and Bray, and even Rodney Gallagher, who's going to be a little bit different kind of a receiver, are going to make that happen. Now, Gallagher had 288 yards and 3 touchdowns last year, but again, this passing attack, I think at times wasn't scaring anybody, and that's something you need to change. Now, behind them is where you could see some fluctuation. RN Singleton comes in from Eastern Michigan. Christian Hamilton comes in from North Carolina. And Hamilton has, again, kind of like Bray, you saw the explosiveness. 7 catches, 159 yards, and 1 touchdown. That's 22.7 yards per catch. That's really good. But again, that's a small sample size. How do you get that to be consistent? How do you get that to happen more frequently? Preston Fox has an opportunity to take a step forward and be a major contributor as well. So there are guys that could play. It's just going to come down to who those guys are. Jared Bowie comes in from Jacksonville State as well, follows Rich Rod. Justin Smith-Brown comes in from South Carolina State. So you have plenty of players that will have a chip on their shoulder, and some of them, recruited by Rich Rod, in Rich Rod's system, in his culture, bringing that back to West Virginia. Those are guys that are going to make this team better. It has to be about competition. It has to be about getting better, and bringing in certain players that are going to make you more competitive makes your team better as a whole. The tight end position is interesting. You lose Cole Taylor, so that obviously is going to hurt. but you bring in Grayson Barnes from Northern Illinois, 338 yards and 4 touchdowns last year. Jacob Barr comes with Rich Rod from Jacksonville State. So you have, again, options, but just unproven options. Guys who are looking to take that step and be maybe a starter or a big contributor for this passing attack. And I'm curious to see how this passing attack looks with, to me, it seems like it's going to be a run heavy offense with a complementary passing attack. But also, I think we saw at Jacksonville State that Rich Rod's passing attack can be a factor, can be a contributor, and can be better than what we might anticipate. So we'll see if that holds true. If Nico Marchiol is going to be that guy, he is someone that is going to have a huge impact on that, but his wide receivers need to get open. Now, how they're going to make plays also starts up front. And you have a number of new faces coming in, and that, again, leads to competition. You lost a ton of talent to the transfer portal and the NFL draft. So you have to find guys that are experienced that could step up. So the tackle position feels like it's in a decent place. I think that Nick Cray is going to be an interesting player to watch. Has 13 games of experience, but no starts. Tykeus Crawford didn't play a ton last year, but has good experience. And he was looking for a chance to start, didn't get it, and now he's at West Virginia where they expect him to be a major contributor. Landon Livingston is going to play a huge role. When you are the center for Rich Rod's offense, you need to be talented, you need to be smart, you need to be able to communicate with your quarterback, and you need to make an impact. And I think that they feel really good about what they have in him there. Walter Youngbear comes in from Tulsa, a team that struggled mightily in the last couple of years. Now he gets to join a team that hopefully has more success. He was one of the few bright spots in Tulsa's offense, and you're hoping that he can be exactly that for West Virginia as well. You're looking at depth too. Depth is really going to be a key, and they do have players that are coming back that have good depth. Guys like Xavier Bosley, Carson Lee have pretty good experience, but again, you are looking to raise the bar. Just because you have 11 games started does not guarantee you a starting spot. Now, there's going to be plenty of competition and plenty of opportunities for guys to show what they can do, but that's also why you bring in guys like Mikael Clay to compete for a starting tackle spot. You bring in Aiden Bussell and Malik Agbo to compete for the guard positions. Nobody's job, honestly, is safe. Everybody is going to have to compete. The one position I think you maybe feel good about in terms of who has their job secured is Jaheim White. I think Jaheim White is settled in his spot. I don't think anybody should be challenging him too closely. But again, everybody's spot is open for competition. Rich Rod is going to make that very clear. But I think that you could look at a couple guys and think, okay, they're probably all right for now, but it's all about getting your team better. So you have to breed that competition. You have to make this group better, and you have to show people that we are not settling for, again, we're not settling for good. We are going to be great. And that's how you start with that. You start over this program, you build a new culture and build it to what you want it to be. And Rich Rod has done a great job of that right off the bat. The defense is going to be no different. And the defensive line will feature a number of new faces. When you lose 3 of your big time playmakers to the NFL, you are going to have to replace them. You just may not do it with one guy. You may have to do it as a collective group, and that's going to be challenging, but I think that they feel pretty good about where this group is at. Bringing in Jamari Robinson, a proven playmaker, that's someone who knows how to get the job done, and he did it at UTSA. They expect big things from him at West Virginia. Braden Siders is a guy who was kind of stuck in a deep rotation at Wyoming. Now he gets a chance to showcase his talent as a potential starter for this team. Eddie Kelly is another guy coming in from Missouri that will challenge both of them for those spots. You also have Curtis Jones Jr., who they really like. Devin Grant comes in from Incarnate Word, so he is another player that has a chip on his shoulder that is looking to prove himself at this level. So that competition should make this group tremendously better, purely based on everybody has to step their game up and they have to show that they are ready to compete. The defensive tackle position, relatively inexperienced, losing TJ Jackson honestly was always going to hurt. You knew that was coming though. Hammond Russell and Edward Vesterinen are going to be the two guys that get the opportunity for that, but you have guys behind them that are eager to prove their worth. Asani Redwood could be a major factor in this rotation. 17 tackles and 3 tackles for loss last year. You also have Nate Gabriel, who had 9 tackles in 2024. Corey McIntyre Jr. is another player to keep an eye on. But again, this is the group that has to step up. This is the group that must show we are ready to compete and we are ready to be part of this group that should be better. I think that you do lose a ton of talent, but as a whole, maybe you feel better about this group collectively, because this was a defense that wasn't great overall. There was plenty that needs to be fixed, and that's part of the downfall of Neil Brown. Now you get a new coaching staff and you are looking to change the culture, hence why you bring in a ton of talent that is hopefully going to change the outlook for this program. It starts up front. If you're not good up front, you're not going to beat anybody, and this is where you really have to be better. And when you lose the amount of talent that you do, you're going to have to rely on transfers. When you're coming in, you can't recruit as many guys as you probably want to fix some of that, and especially if you want to compete right away, at least be competitive to sell future recruiting classes or transfer classes. You have to have some sort of progress right off the bat. So you bring in players from the transfer portal to start right away, and then you're hoping that everything else kind of falls in place. The linebacker position, and honestly, everything behind the defensive line feels like it's in a good place. The linebacker position, especially. Chase Wilson is a very underrated player, comes in from Colorado State, had 98 tackles last year, did more cleanup duty more than anything for that team, but he is someone that can be disruptive. He's someone who can make plays out in space and gives them a veteran player that is ready to compete for a starting spot right off the bat. Reed Carrico is another guy that's going to be fun to watch. Returns to West Virginia. 54 tackles last year. Again, not a ton of disruptive plays is what you're going to see from this defense from last year. You're hoping to get more disruptive. That is a big way to turn everything around. And this is a team that really expects the linebackers to be as disruptive as anybody really in the country. You also have some interesting depth pieces behind them, though relatively inexperienced. Ashton Woods is an inexperienced player that comes in from North Carolina. You return Ben Cutter, a very experienced player, but someone they're looking to hopefully see more production from. You also bring in Ben Bogle from Southern Illinois. Now, Ben Bogle was very productive, but at the FBS level, you don't know how that's going to translate. But the fact that he knows how to do it shows you that he's very aware. He has the IQ to get to the ball carrier. He knows how to make plays. It's just a matter of elevating your talent to the next level. Mike Hasty is a freshman that could step up in a big way. Has a good frame at 6'3", 222 pounds, but you're hoping that you can at least redshirt him or save him for when you really need to put him in. Give him time to develop, and hopefully that leads to good things down the road. The secondary also is going to be a really fun group. Now, you do bring in plenty of talent from the transfer portal. In fact, 4 of the 5 starters right off the bat will be from the portal, and the depth pieces are going to be mostly from the portal as well. So you're going to see plenty of new faces manning the secondary, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that it might take some time to get them all familiar with each other. The lone returner is going to be Kokora Tarnu. Pretty productive last year, pretty good for this secondary. But again, this is a secondary that finished 126th. So you're going to have to find ways to be better defending the pass. 35 tackles for him last year, 3 tackles for loss, 5 passes defended. You bring in a couple of Jacksonville State transfers that were very good and definitely deserving of Power 4 offers. Derek Carter and Fred Perry II. Very productive, very disruptive. That's exactly what you need from those guys to step up and elevate what was honestly a mediocre to bad defense. The defense has to get better. The defense has to find ways to make more plays, and bringing guys that know how to do that is a good way to start. Michael Coates Jr., we talked about him before. He is someone that is ready to show that he can compete at any level. Playing at Nevada was tough. That was a team that was better than the record indicated, but still a group that needs to improve. They have plenty of work to do, and it's going to take some time. That being said, Michael Coates Jr. was one of the few bright spots that shined on a consistent basis. 41 tackles last year, 13 passes defended, 4 interceptions. So a proven playmaker, a guy who knows how to get the ball to his team and get it back to his offense. Same with Derek Carter. His numbers don't show that, but that's someone who knows how to make plays opposite of Coates. So if you're throwing on West Virginia, you probably have a little bit of a tougher time this year. Justin Harrington, another player to keep an eye on, comes in from Washington. Really good size at 6'3", 217 pounds. So you're feeling pretty good about what he can do for this defense. Again, it's all about raising expectations. It's all about making everyone better. And they brought in a number of players that are proven playmakers and are ready. Again, having a chip on your shoulder is definitely going to help. Having players like this will make your team better overall. And it just comes down to how well they play together. Learning each other now, learning a new system, getting that chemistry is the biggest thing that West Virginia has to do. The depth behind them is littered with transfer portal players. You look at a couple of App State transfers in Jason Chambers and Nick Taylor. Those are guys with good experience. So it's not, you have plenty of experience behind these guys. This is the most experienced group of the defense. It's just going to come down to when you look at these guys, you have plenty of group of 5 transfers. And honestly, to an extent, that is a good thing. Bringing in guys that are looking to show exactly what they can do and guys that are overlooked that will have that chip on their shoulder, that's going to make them really hungry to prove that they can compete in the Big 12. You also bring in 2 Akron transfers, Darian Lewis and Devontae Golden Nelson. More experience, plenty of ability to get the ball back to your offense. Again, taking that step is really where the questions come in. Jordan Scruggs comes in from South Alabama. Jordan Walker comes in from Chattanooga. You have plenty of interesting options. And honestly, if the starters don't pan out, you can go to another guy that is ready and eager to prove his worth. And like I said, Rich Rod is breeding that competition that's going to make this group competitive and is going to make guys compete with each other and show either that you're ready or you're going to be sitting on the bench. You're going to make this team better or you're not going to play. And that honestly has to be their mentality to get them back to where Rich Rod wants them to be. You just can't be complacent. You can't settle for good. You have to want to be great. Now, it might take some time because the Big 12 is about as difficult to win as any other conference. And it's not because there are really, really good teams. It's because this is honestly the most competitive conference in terms of number of teams that can win. And West Virginia may be a team that could, but this is right now a team that needs some time. The over-under is 5.5 right now. 17% of you somehow think they're going to be 1st through 4th, which would be crazy. I would love to watch that. I just don't think that's going to happen. Now, finishing 5th through 8th might still be a little bit far-fetched for some, but 43% of you say that that's where they're going to finish. 33% say where they're probably going to finish, which is 9th through 12th, 13th through 16th, 7% think there. I think the ceiling is 7-5. That would put them in, kind of that 5th through 8th or 9th through 12th range. 4-8 is the floor because the schedule overall, I don't think is terrible, but you are going to have some tough games early on. Robert Morris is a relatively easy one. Ohio has won the MAC a couple times now, and their quarterback, Park Navarro, is going to give them fits, especially if this defense needs time to get acclimated with each other. Pitt is a tough game, obviously, and then you go at Kansas, Utah, and at BYU. Those are 3 teams that right now I think a lot of people would say are better than West Virginia, and Utah and BYU are looking to compete for a Big 12 championship. You get a bye week before you go to UCF, and then you play TCU, Houston, at Colorado, and at Arizona State before a final bye week, and then you finish the year with Texas Tech. The second half of the season is fairly challenging. You have, again, a number of teams that are looking to compete for a Big 12 title, a number of teams that are going to give West Virginia a tough time. And it's just going to come down to how well they can gel with each other. How competitive will they actually be? That is the biggest question with this team. And overall, it's going to come down to how well Rich Rod and the staff can get them to buy in. And it may take some time. It might not be right off the bat, but this is a team that is ready to prove that they can get back to where they once were. And if they can, that's going to be a tremendous story. But it shows that Rich Rod believes in what he says, he can deliver on what he says. And this will be a West Virginia team that we could be talking about just like we did in 2007, 2008 as a potential national championship contender. That will take some time to get there, but if they do, it's going to be fun.